Good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining us for this session about how to develop a sustainable blue economy. As we all know, there is a huge potential, economic and social potential, in a value creation with marine systems on the one side, but on the other side, there is also a very serious environmental challenge because, as we all know, most of our ocean, seas, rivers are in a poor shape and are unfortunately degrading. So using marine system, the ocean, for food, for leisure, for mobility, for energy, for biotech is a great perspective, but we have to be very careful. In order to address this question and to discuss it this afternoon, we've composed at the Paris Peace Forum a typical Paris Peace Forum panel. What I mean by a typical Paris Peace Forum panel is a panel where we are joined by a sovereign, a head of a country, NGOs and actors on the ground, and we have two of them, and I'll come back to that in a minute, plus an international organization. So typical of a sort of multi-stakeholder, multi-actor discussion, coalition, projects, ambitions, which we nurture traditionally in the Paris Peace Forum since our first edition in 2018. To discuss this question, as I just said, we have the president of Comoros, my friend, Azali ASSOUMANI. If you allow me, Mr. President, to call you my friend, I remember we were already together at the first edition of the Paris Peace Forum, presenting your ideas on how to move Comoros forward. And of course, if we had to choose one of the 200 countries on this planet where the blue economy has a major importance, Comoros would probably come, if not totally top of the list, at least very high on the list. We also have two ground actors in trying to move towards a sustainable blue economy. We have Martin Chong, who is in running a project in the Pacific, which is in cooperation with the European Union, in a number of Pacific islands, in order to move them towards such an ideal sustainable blue economy. We also have Federico MAZZA, who also belongs to an alliance, the Ocean Risk and Resilience Alliance, and who's working on how to adjust what he learned on climate finance into ocean finance, from green finance to blue finance in a way. And of course, we have, as I said, a representative of a major international organization, UNESCO, who not many people know is also the place where the UN knowledge on ocean science is concentrated. Francesca SANTORO, thanks for being with us, bringing this host of knowledge which lies in the place which is run by my good friend, Vladimir Ryabinin. Now, let's now move to the discussion. I have prepared one question for each of you, which you would be kind to answer in sort of 4 or 5 minutes maximum, so that then we can leave room for questions by the audience, and I will collect. These platforms are done in such a way that I permanently can collect questions coming from the audience. So thanks for those of you who are attending. Don't hesitate to put your questions on the platform. Be sure they will land in the right hands. But let me first start with a question for President ASSOUMANI. As I said, you are the president of a country for which the blue economy is not something for the future, it's something for every day, every morning, every night. So what is, Mr. President, how is Comoros, how are you, your compatriots, how are you running the blue part of your economy? Over to you, Mr. President.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, dear Chair. And before anything, I would like to thank President Emmanuel Macron, his government, and the French people for having us and for their hospitality ever since we arrived. And I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the initiative that launched this forum, that today has become an indispensable annual meeting and offers a framework for the promotion of peace, governance, multilateralism, and social progress. I'd like to congratulate you, Mr. Pascal Lamy, as president of this forum, for your dynamism, for your perseverance in achieving the objectives of this forum. I would also like to underline how timely this theme is, that of the blue economy, which we will be discussing today. Ladies and gentlemen, good governance of the oceans and of coastal areas is of particular interest to the Union of the Comoros, which is among small island developing states. And we are experiencing the effects of climate change and of rising sea levels. We are going through particular vulnerability, which was exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which has deeply disrupted economies all over the world. And that is why our country is counting on the blue economy as we rely on aquaculture, fishing, tourism, transport, naval construction, energy, and all of these various streams. We are aware of the role we have played in the 2063 agenda of the African Union, which builds the appropriate framework to implement the integrated African strategy for the seas and the oceans. Indeed, our area has unfortunately become a hub for illegal fishing. And we are unaware of how our oceans are faring. Our oceans are polluted with plastic, with fuel and radioactive waste. And parallel to this, we are suffering from overfishing and the depletion of fishing resources. We have a wide variety of fish in our area, including very unique species. We have fish that is 350 million years old, and as of today, this species is in danger of extinction. We believe that it is absolutely crucial to preserve our biodiversity. And we have a number of species that are listed among species that need to be preserved. A number of conventions have cited this area as deserving of particular protection. It is also among the sites that has been selected by UNESCO as a biosphere reserve. Ladies and gentlemen, dear President, the climate crisis is affecting biodiversity, and we need to look to developing a sustainable blue economy to protect the environment and economic activity. We need to change tax. As of today, we should no longer exploit these resources, but leverage them in a sustainable way. The transition to a blue economy requires innovative technology. And this is necessary in order to achieve net zero emissions and our environmental goals, developing renewable energy at sea, for instance. This would help us produce electricity for our island by 2030. And it will be important for us to reduce the environmental impact of fishing. Ladies and gentlemen, the development of the blue economy needs to be a part of a regional and international strategy. It is absolutely crucial that we protect biodiversity and foster harmonious living between humankind and nature. Mitigation and adaptation measures will be at the heart of such a strategy. And we will need to consider how necessary it is to protect coastal ecosystems and manage waste. International cooperation, robust partnerships among countries, the sharing of costs and of experiences will be absolutely essential. A regional plan on the blue economy funded by these partnerships, regional office of the United Nations has been set up, and the Comoros has also taken a stand within the African Union to develop the blue economy. The new 2022-2026 plan includes the blue economy as one of its priorities. And the ILO also has adopted a new strategy on adaptation. And we have also developed a partnership to support the organization and organize an event on youth entrepreneurship and green jobs. And that will be organized in December on our island. Ladies and gentlemen, the blue economy rests on resilience and looks to a more sustainable and social development. It will help us achieve the sustainable development goals for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So you've brushed the big picture, both on the side of vulnerabilities, challenges, and on the side of potentials, not just in mentioning how quickly your country could reach zero carbon energy provision. Let's now move to actors on the ground, stakeholders of the blue economy, just as sovereigns are, starting with Martin Chong. So we move from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, where challenges are probably very similar So how does the initiative you are heading, Martin, how does it address these complex challenges versus opportunities equation in the Pacific Islands?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, the President of Comoros, and my fellow panelists today. I'm very honored to be part of this discussion and to talk a little bit about what we do on the Pacific European Union Marine Partnership Program. And to give you, I mean, the blue economy is what the Pacific is built on, effectively. If you think of the Pacific as custodians of almost 28 million square kilometers of ocean space, which roughly makes up about 20% of the world's exclusive economic zones, it gives you an idea of the scale of this program, which covers 15 countries in the Pacific region. And on the premise that marine resources are the backbone of the Pacific region's economies and form the basis of men and women's livelihoods in the Pacific Island countries. Economically, oceanic fisheries are vital for the region as a source of economic growth and government revenue, for decent employment, for food security, for small business opportunities, and in particular for fisheries and tuna fisheries in the Pacific. The European Union is the main market for tuna loins from Pacific processing plants. The vastness of the Pacific requires a program that pulls together regional partners or regional actors to work together. And in this instance, the PM program consists of 4 partners in the region who collaborate together as co-delegates. And the organization that I work for, which is the Pacific Community, we're working very close. It's the principal scientific organization in the Pacific. And the Pacific Community covers 2 of the 6 key result areas on this program. The first one is high quality oceanic and management advice for tuna fisheries. This is to be utilized at regional and national levels. And the other aspect that the Pacific Community, or SPC, covers is sustainable management of coastal fisheries, resources and ecosystems through, again, better quality scientific information and advice for member countries to empower their use of these resources, especially at community level. We also work with the Foreign Fisheries Agency. This is the main agency in the region that looks after the tuna fisheries development, and there's 2 aspects to their work. One is the equitable and inclusive benefit of tuna income for across the region. And that's through supporting the development of competent authorities within countries so that they can meet access requirements to European markets and other markets. There's also the private sector aspect, which is covered by the program, and through FFA, we work with regional tuna industry associations to support them in accessing new markets across the world. And the other aspect that the Foreign Fisheries Agencies covers is the scourge of the IUU, or illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing in the region, which for the region it amounts to roughly around about $600 million a year that's taken out of the region through IUU. It's a huge challenge, and this program is playing its part in trying to address that. We also cover biodiversity and sustainable use of coastal and biodiversity through improving marine spatial planning, amongst other things, and increasing climate change resilience in some of our target countries, and enhancing conservation, mitigation, and rehabilitation measures throughout there. And the final component of this program is a capacity building aspect. And on that, we have the University of the South Pacific, which is the leading university in the region. And through them, we're building capacity through training and research and development of stakeholder groups in fisheries and marine resource management through micro-qualification courses such as seafood business, starting seafood businesses in the Pacific region, especially for women's groups, and I'll expand a little bit further on that in that this program, part of its one of the key cross-cutting aspects is gender, social inclusion, and the human rights based approach, which we apply across all of the 6 KRAs that we work in. And there's one further KRA I wanted to mention, which is KRA 0, and that consists of the Program Management Unit, of which I am part of, and also within that is the Maritime Boundaries team, who are doing excellent work in pushing the region forward, and I think at this point it might even be the world leader in delimiting its boundaries. Of the 48 boundaries, we have 13 remaining, and this program, the way it has been developed and functions, is it embeds itself within all the organizations that I just mentioned across the 6 KRAs. So it effectively is ongoing work that the region has been doing for quite a number of years with multiple partners. And the benefit of this program is that it can dovetail in to continue to support these critical, I suppose, key scientific work that is done in the region to manage its resources, to provide information for our member states to make informed decisions about the management of their resources. We are in year 3. We've started year 4 of a 5-year program, but we have been heavily impacted by the pandemic, of course, like many other places. But one of the effects from the pandemic is noticeable increased pressures on coastal fisheries. As was alluded to earlier, the ocean provides economic opportunities in tourism, transport, fishing, etc. So tourism, as an example, here in Fiji, tourism is a big money earner, and the pandemic really affected that. So workers were laid off that went back to their villages, etc., which increased the pressure on coastal fisheries resources. And governments have to also be pragmatic about some things like seasonal bans on certain types of fish, etc. At a time when people are suffering from loss of income, etc., and needing to access food, and the sea being all around us, that's the place where people will go to source their needs for income or to feed their families. So the work that the program is doing will help to serve the region to manage its blue economy long into the future by supporting and continuing to support the important work that all of these organizations do in the region. And to draw a bit of light on the vastness of this program.
If I may ask you to conclude your point, please, Martin, that would be great.
Sure. Okay. The region, the program covers the Pacific, but it also stretches as far as Timor-Leste, and whilst we are a 5-year program, we are also looking to extend the program by another 2 years, and that is something that we will be discussing with the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Martin. So you address a host of different problems with a wide constituency of different actors. And we understand that the organization of this is something which must be quite complex, but in a way absolutely necessary. Now, let's move to Federico Mazza. We've heard about the challenges, we've heard about the prospects of moving a country like Comoros, which is a set of different islands, more into the benefits of a blue economy. This obviously entails resources. We have nature, we have people. Do we have finance to do that, Federico? And what's your take on this aspect?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lamy, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here today with such distinguished panelists. Do we have finance? I think, yes, there is finance. I think there is maybe good and bad finance. I would say greed and overexploitations are perhaps part of the bad finance. And obviously profits are behind some of the drivers behind deforestation and natural degradation around the world. But there's also finance that can be used in equitable ways and can offer solutions to the multiple environmental crises that we are facing today. Science is clear. A healthy ocean and a stable climate are two sides of the same coin. There cannot be a healthy climate without a healthy and regenerating ocean. And both of them are in a measurable decline. There's an enormous financing gap out there for both climate and oceans. We hear, for example, that developed countries have failed to meet the 100 billion goal on climate finance in 2020 across all of the developing countries. And the situation is even worse for coastal, least developed countries and small island developing states, such as Comoros, for example. Seeds are the most vulnerable to climate change and extreme weather events and receive less than 2% of annual global climate finance flows. I just came back from Glasgow, and at COP26 we have heard several pledges and commitments from governments and corporates to protect and restore oceans. And several of them were made at a high-level roundtable that ORA has co-hosted with the UK government to ensure a dialogue and collaboration between private sector, governments, and civil society from around the world. At least $20 million were committed for coastal and marine environments at our roundtable. And while this may not sound very much, I think every little drop of finance, the good finance, counts in scaling investments from the millions of dollars where we are now to the trillions of dollars that are needed to protect oceans and the climate more generally. However, I think the most important thing is that these high-level pledges are married with on-the-ground work. with projects that truly benefit the most vulnerable people and enable local communities to adapt at significant scale, particularly targeting the most marginalized groups, such as women and girls. And this is essentially what we focus on at the Ocean Risk and Resilience Innovation Alliance. ORA is a multi-stakeholder collaboration aimed at designing and scaling innovative finance and insurance products that incentivize investment into coastal nature-based solutions. To date, we count over 35 members that bring collective knowledge and experience, including civil society representatives such as WWF, Conservation International, the Nature Conservancy. We have governments such as UK and Canada, with private financial institutions like AXA, Willis Tower Watson, Swiss Re, and the Deutsche Bank. And we also have public multilateral stakeholders like IDB as members of ORA. The goal of ORA is to be able to drive $500 million of investment into ocean nature-based solutions by 2030, surfacing at least 50 novel financial products and improve the livelihood and resilience of over 250 million climate vulnerable coastal people. One of the very key focuses of ORA is accelerating the creation of innovative investable finance and insurance products that have the potential to generate impact and be scaled across the world, in particular across the global south. At the start of this year, we have successfully launched the first Ocean Resilience Innovation Challenge, where we have selected 4 community-led solutions to accelerate. We provided them with support and mentorship on improving their business models. And these solutions range, for example, from voluntary community carbon credits for mangrove conservation in Tanzania to insurances for small-scale fishers in the Philippines. And I am very pleased to announce that today, here at the Paris Peace Forum, we're launching the second cycle of the Ocean Resilience Innovation Challenge in partnership with the Swiss Re Foundation and with the support of the UK government's Blue Planet Fund. So we want to hear about locally led solutions designed to drive investment into marine and coastal nature that have the potential to reduce risk and increase the resilience of people and communities that depend on it. What we're going to provide is a tailored support to a small number of these successful projects that we will select for their level of innovation, the scale of their impact, and equity. So I really, really hope to receive many submissions, maybe even from the people that are here today listening to this discussion. So please keep in touch, watch the ORA website and our social media for more details. Thank you very much.
Good pitch, Federico. Well done. And thanks for using this occasion for trying to attract part of the 500 million which you mentioned and which where you intend to deploy the way you've described it, I think is a pretty appetizing perspective for those who, having done well, would like to do good. And in the Paris Peace Forum, we know how important this is. Now, let's move now to the science part of our discussion. Francesca Santoro is at the IOC, which, as I said, is the oceanographic part of the UN, which is located at UNESCO, which has to do with science education. So, Francesca, you know that among us ocean and water wonks, we have a custom to say that planet Mars is 3 times more well-known than planet Sea, and that planet Sea, or planet Ocean, which is the good name that should have been given to planet Earth, given that the sea and oceans are 2/3 of planet Earth, is much less well-known, much less known than planet Mars. Now, is that true? do we have that a big science deficit on oceans? And we've heard from previous speakers that there's quite an issue in understanding, knowing, simulating, being able to forecast what happens with marine ecosystems. So what's your take on this, Francesca? And what is the contribution of oceanographic science, which goes with, of course, meteorological science, which goes with space science, to understanding how our ocean, hence our blue economy, can work? Over to you, Francesca.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation. It's really also for me a great pleasure to be in this panel and to bring the voice of science, ocean science, as you said. So it's also a very special moment for UNESCO as a whole, because some of you might know that yesterday we celebrated our 75th anniversary. So UNESCO was established 75 years ago, and the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO some years later in 1960. So since then, as you mentioned, the IOC of UNESCO has been mandated to coordinate globally ocean science and ocean research, being the UN focal point for ocean science. Since then, I believe we have reached a lot of milestones. We have promoted ocean science globally, but as you correctly said, there is still a lot to do in order to fill those knowledge gaps in our knowledge of the ocean. I was mentioning, and I think it's important to mention, a number of achievements of the IOC of UNESCO, and I would mention here first of all, the global ocean observing system. So our global system to observe the ocean and to better know the ocean, as well as some services that we provide to ocean and coastal communities. Especially I'm referring here to the tsunami early warning system. Some of you might know that we only had the Pacific tsunami warning system till 2004, when we had the unfortunate event of the Southeast Pacific tsunami. And since then, we Southeast Indian Ocean tsunami. And since then, we were able to include 3 more tsunami warning systems, the one for the Indian Ocean, for the Caribbean, and for the Mediterranean and Northeastern Atlantic. So this is a concrete example of how monitoring, studying the ocean can be helpful for society, for communities. And this is really at the basis of what we are trying to promote with our major initiative right now, which is the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. So in 2017, in December 2017, the General Assembly of the United Nations has proclaimed a decade of ocean science, and we were mandated to first coordinate a planning phase for this decade. And currently, we are the agency who is in charge of coordinating overall the implementation of this decade of ocean science. So we really hope to fill those knowledge gaps that we were mentioning before. During these 10 years. And one particular thing that I could mention is to increase our knowledge of the seafloor thanks to a major program which is called Seabed 2030. And thanks to this program, we have been able to go from knowing or having mapped at a high resolution only the 5% more or less of the seafloor. We are currently at between the 19 and the 20%. And this, of course, is crucial for what we are discussing today, which is the blue economy, because a lot of activities that are happening in the ocean are happening at the seafloor. And so the knowledge and the capacity of developing a digital map of the ocean is also very important to promote a sustainable blue economy. An additional initiative that the IOC of UNESCO has been promoting, and this is very much linked to what was mentioned regarding the importance of raising awareness of the ocean among the public, I would say, and among stakeholders, is our ocean literacy program that I have the honor to coordinate. So this is a global program to not only, I would say, raise awareness of people about the ocean, but mainly to empower people to use that ocean knowledge to drive action. So the ocean literacy is one of the pillars of this ocean decade, and we have recently launched an ocean literacy program for the ocean decade, which is called Ocean Literacy with All, because that with is the important part of the program, because we really want to engage everybody, and the decade wants to engage everybody. So the private sector, government, civil society, and this is also, for example, what we did and we are currently doing with educational projects like one called See Beyond that we are promoting together with the private sector company and brand, which is called Prada, that everybody knows, and that help us spreading the word about the importance of the ocean. We are also, our motto for the kids, for the students that are working with us is learn, think, act, because we want the students to not only, as I said, learn about the ocean, but really be able to use that knowledge and also their creativity to drive actions and to propose solutions, which is what we really need right now, as we were hearing from the previous speakers, and also as we have been hearing in the last 2 weeks in the talks and in COP. We really need action, and we really need good science to drive those actions.
Thanks very much, Francesca, for bringing this essential scientific dimension into our debate this afternoon. We have 10 minutes left before I conclude. I'm looking at the questions that came from those who follow up us on the platform, and I will now address one question to each of you. In reality, two questions for President ASSOUMANI, because they came on my screen, and then one question for the other panelists. The question for President ASSOUMANI is one: what is your, if there is one priority to move your country towards a sustainable blue economy, what would be this priority? And my second question for you, Mr. President, has to do with piracy. It's a question that came from the audience, how to secure that the Indian Ocean zone against piracy, how to unite countries in the Indian Ocean for such a dynamic. So those are my two questions for you. My question for Federico and for Martin I extracted from another question that comes from the audience, which is about the sort of North-South responsibility burden on this issue. The starting point being that northern countries have quite a large responsibility in why small, vulnerable islands are under threat now, and whether or not they do, according to you, what fits with the responsibility they are saddled with. So in the case of Martin, do you believe the EU is doing what it should do? In the case of Federico, how do you see, I mean, richer countries stepping in a program like yours? And the final question would be for Francesca, and it's the same as for the President. In ocean science, Francesca, what would be priority number one? I use this occasion to inform you that as chair of the Starfish mission, which is about regeneration of the EU hydrosphere by 2030, we are now pushing very hard a project of a digital twin of the ocean, which is taking shape and which we intend to push in the next big international events. The one that will take place, of course, with the UN in Portugal in June, but before that, the one that will take place in France, in Brest, in February. So that's a short commercial on my side, but back to my normal role of chair. My dear friend Azali ASSOUMANI, what's your answer to these questions? We now have 9 minutes to finish before I conclude. President.
Rassurez-vous, mon cher président.
Don't worry, I'll be brief, because both questions are really the same for us. And I would like to thank all the participants. And I'd like to congratulate you all on your work. With regard to Comoros, our priority is securing our borders. How can we secure our borders to avoid the 3 Ps? That is, in French, fishing, illegal fishing, piracy, and pollution. These are our 3 priorities. How can people help us so that we can permanently keep an eye on our borders and keep them secure above all? Because if our borders are secure, then we can move forward with the free circulation of people and goods, among the different islands and with other states nearby. As with all island states, we are confronted with rising waters and with land erosion. So how can you help us so that these phenomena can be stopped, so that these small island states can be protected from climate change? We have beautiful beaches that provide tourist revenue for us, and if those beaches disappear, that will be a huge part of our economy and also of our natural heritage that will disappear. So that is the priority that we would give. Thank you.
Very clear. We will remember PPF, which is not the name of the Paris Peace Forum, but of the Comoros Agenda, Piracy, Pollution, Fish. PPF, Piracy, Pollution, Fish. I think we will remember that this is a very clear description of where you want to go. Now, the same question for Federico first, for Martin first and Federico. Then, does the North do what it needs to be done vis-à-vis the South in the development of this blue economy? 1 minute each to answer this tough question. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the European Union is doing what it needs to do to support the region here in the south, and this PM program is the perfect example of their commitment to the region. And this time it's more into across the 6 KRAs that we work with and across the 4 organizations that we work with. It's supporting the science, the biodiversity management, the sustainability of coastal fisheries, etc. So I say this this program is the perfect example of what the EU can do in a practical way to support the regional technical organizations to continue their important work to support the region's people, because the blue economy is very, very important and it's critical to the region. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks a lot. Federico, in what you've started as a pipe of new finance, do you feel that richer countries, richer people are ready to bridge part of this finance gap?
Well, I think richer countries could and should be doing more to support solving these problems in the global south, given that they are behind, people in the richer countries are behind a lot of the problems that are happening on the ground, like, for example, increased demand for fish for consumption. There are good examples, and ORA is supporting these examples, working with institutions and corporates that are headquartered in the global north. And I just want to give an example about how the insurance sector is developing tools like, for example, parametric insurance products for coral reefs and mangroves to protect natural ecosystems and help build resilience. Our partners, Willis Tower Watson, for example, have partnered with the MAR Fund to create a parametric insurance program in Central America that can provide immediate payouts to finance reef repair works when, for example, a cyclone of a certain entity happens, and they release immediate financial support to local community members, fishers, and tourism workers to repair the reef and minimizing the losses. There are other examples around the world, also in terms of like reducing illegal fishing that many have mentioned in this panel. And we have been working with our partners, AXA and Ocean Unite and Oceana and Global Fishing Watch, to help insurers better evaluate the vessels that they're looking to insure by, for example, requiring IMO identifiers to access policies. So these are just some examples on how like companies and governments in the north can solve the problems in the south.
Thanks very much. Thank you for this concrete answer. 1 minute for Francesca, ocean science. Where should we start with in order to diminish the science gap we have?
Not straightforward question, but I would say for sure, better knowledge of the ocean climate nexus is one of the priorities. And mentioning that, I would also say, better understanding of the biogeochemical cycles, increasing our knowledge of the coastal oceanography. It's a big gap there, and we hope during the ocean decade to really close those gaps. But of course, I would say that at least for us, the priority is to make sure that everybody has the capacity globally to participate in ocean science. Ocean science cannot be dealt by one country alone or a group of countries alone. They have to, it's by definition an interdisciplinary science that needs to be done together with different countries, because in the ocean there are no borders. So I would say, to say it very briefly, that we really need to promote the capacity of all, especially young scientists and especially young women scientists in ocean science, to be able to really promote in an evenly manner the capacity of people to work on ocean science, and also to financially support ocean science, which is still underfinanced in almost all countries.
Thanks a lot. You're bringing water to my mill, Francesca, because one of the virtues of this tentative digital twin of the ocean is to couple it, of course, with satellite observation, of course, with water observation, but also with citizens observation, citizen science. We can think of apps where you and me could bring more science in, providing observations on whatever element of the hydrosphere we're in contact with. So that's an enthusiastic prospect. Let me now conclude, which is my role first in thanking you all for engaging so frankly, concretely. I think we have a much better understanding of various facets of that. If I have to conclude, I think I would go back to my starfish image, the name we choose for this big European mission for regenerating the hydrosphere. Sort of 5 things which you've all been mentioning. 1, knowledge, and we need more of that. B, protect from overfishing, from piracy, from pollution. 3, regenerate. It's great to protect and avoid further damage, but we know that in many cases, the present course has to be not only stopped, but reversed. So regenerate. 4th, invest. And that needs a lot of finance mobilization. And 5th, organize, govern. And these 5 things which you've all mentioned, more or less, are the 5 legs of the starfish which we adopted. in Brussels at EU level for this sort of moonshot-like mission, which is about regenerating the EU hydrosphere. And of course, behind this, there is a much wider ambition. There is no way any of us can dream of regenerating our ocean, our water, our rivers, our lakes, without understanding that this is one ecosystem and that overall there is something which we all have in common, which is one ocean. And by the way, this is why the next big international gathering, which will take place in Brest, in the west of the country, I know West, in mid-February, will be called the One Ocean Summit, OOS, a new acronym which we will need to get acquainted with. Thanks a lot for your contribution. Thanks for the precision and the sort of level of ambition which you expressed after a Glasgow COP, which is, let's say, mixed results, so-and-so. There still is energy, enthusiasm on the ocean side. Thanks for that. And we will keep at the Paris Peace Forum helping you all to engage. Many thanks and good end of the afternoon if you are in our time zone. Bye, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.